Interlaken in the Bernese Oberland. The start of our journey through the Jungfrau region in the heart of Switzerland, surrounded by an awe-inspiring mountainscape. Tourism really began to develop in the early 20th century with the completion of two railways, the Bernese Oberland Railway and the Jungfrau Railway. Interlaken is also the base station of the Harder Railway. This is one of the two funiculars in Interlaken. A funicular is a railway that carries two cars. The descending and ascending cars connected with cables counterbalance each other. This minimizes power consumption. Home to ibex and a marmot colony, the Interlaken Alpine Game Park is located next to the Harder Railway base station. The mountain station Harder Kulm is situated at an elevation of 1,322 meters, some 750 meters above Interlaken. A short walk brings us to the restaurant on Interlaken's House Mountain. On a clear day, this spot reveals spectacular panoramic vistas that extend deep into the mountains, offering views of the peaks of the famous Eiger, Munch, and Jungfrau. Ballenberg is situated slightly higher above Lake Thun. The almost 2,000-meter high Niederhorn can be reached by gondola. The trip can also be made by trotty bike. They are available to rent here. From 1835 onward, ships were an important mode of transport between the towns on the banks of Lake Brienz and Lake Thun. The first section of a tram connection between Thun and Interlaken opened in 1913. Bus transport and the growing popularity of the car spelled the end of the tram in 1958. Built in 1906, the paddle steamer Blumliselb was in operation on Lake Thun until 1971 and was the last steamboat to be retired. Some 20 years later, in 1990, the boat underwent a 2-year renovation, named after a massif in the Bernese Oberland. The Blumliselb went into operation for the second time on 22 May 1992. Lake Brienz has its own paddle steamer too. Here you see the Lauterbrunnen for a trip to Brienz. The Lauterbrunnen is a paddle steamer that went into operation in 1914. Does it seem to you that the Lauterbrunnen produces very little smoke for a steamboat? This is true. From 1968 onwards, the boat has been powered by diesel oil instead of coal. In 2001, the Lauterbrunnen was overhauled, which included replacing the boiler. It is still the only steamboat on Lake Brienz. Brienz is situated on the north shore of the lake of the same name. The town is best known for its famous wood carving and as the departure point for the Brienzer Rothorn railway. Until 1888, Brienz was the final stop on the railroad line from Luzern over the Schynige Pass. Passengers and cargo bound for Interlaken had to continue their journey by boat. The railway was extended to Interlaken Oost in 1916. Lake Brienz is fed by the Aare and the Schynige rivers and has a length of approximately 14 kilometers and a maximum depth of 260 meters. Passenger boats have been in operation since 1839. Today, 5 boats primarily serve as tourist transportation. The Brienzer Rothorn Railway is a cog-wheel railway that runs to the top of the Brienzer Rothorn. The railway opened in 1892, but it was not a big success. The outbreak of World War I and competition from the Schynige Platte Railway and the Jungfrau Railway proved the Brienzer Rothorn Railway non-viable, and the track was put out of service in 1914. The track was not dismantled due to the high cost. In 1931, financiers saw new potential in reopening the track, especially because it was still in good shape despite the extended period of disuse. The decision was also made to not electrify the track. As a result, the Brienzer Rothorn Railway became a truly special attraction. Together with the Fuka Bergstrecke steam railway, it is the only steam-driven railway still operating in Switzerland. The BRB relies mainly on modern oil-powered steam locomotives. Coal-powered steam locomotives are still in operation and use some 300 kilograms of coal and 2,000 liters of water for a mountain journey. On a clear day, Harder Kulm offers a stunning view of Lake Brienz, the Eiger, Münch, and Jungfrau. Near Brienz, we find the Ballenberg Open Air Museum, one of the most important in Switzerland. Over 100 original buildings from all parts of Switzerland have been brought together here. The museum is also home to hundreds of farm animals, most of which represent typical Swiss breeds. The museum wants to save these breeds from extinction. We find ruins of Castle Unspunnen on the spit of land between Lake Thun and Lake Brienz. The castle was built in the 12th century and inhabited until 1553. Unspunnen Fest is a Swiss Alpine Shepherds Festival, Alpeltenfest, that dates back to 1805. It was first celebrated near the Unspunnen ruins against the backdrop of the Alpine panorama featuring the Eiger, Münch, and Jungfrau. The festival was prompted by the French oppressors' elimination of the Helvetica Republic and return to a confederation. One of the festival organizers described it as follows: "After a lengthy period of French orders and humiliations, the Swiss must once again be offered festivity with traditional combat sports and songs. This strengthens one's self-respect and the national consciousness." A stone-throwing Steintossen contest was part of the festival from the very first edition. Competitors hurled a stone weighing 83.5 kilograms. Unspunnen Fest is a folklore festival. Traditional costume, folk dancing, yodeling, and folk music turn the festival into an epicenter of Swiss folklore for 3 days. Another Swiss tradition is Schwingen. This is a variation on conventional wrestling. Participants wear short trousers made of burlap. You are the winner if you manage to pin your opponent's shoulders to the sawdust. One of your hands must be locked onto the burlap trousers. There are no weight classes. The strongest wins. Wilhelm Tell, the legendary Swiss freedom fighter from the early 14th century. The legend dates back to the time of Habsburg oppression. Governor Gessler had his hat attached to a post on the village square, and everyone who passed the square was required to salute the hat. When Wilhelm Tell refused, he was ordered to shoot an apple off his son's head as punishment. William brought 2 arrows. The second was intended for the governor in the event the first arrow killed his son. Even after successfully shooting the apple off his son's head, Tell was imprisoned. However, he managed to escape and subsequently killed the hated governor. From 1912 onwards, Interlaken has hosted outdoor performances of Friedrich Schiller's play based on the life of Wilhelm Tell. Wildeswil is located on the southern border of the Bodeli. This is the name given to the spit of land between Lake Thun and Lake Brienz. The church currently standing was built between the 12th and 13th century. The first building probably dates back to the 8th or 9th century. The Wildeswil station not only accommodates trains from the Bernese Oberland Railway, it also serves as the starting point and terminus of the Schynige Platte Railway. This Cog-wheel railway went into operation in 1893. Steam locomotives operated here until the switch to electricity in 1914. A number of these original old locomotives are still in use. Over the years, they have been overhauled and adapted to modern railway requirements. On the single-track section, the descending and ascending trains and breetlauns still have the opportunity to pass each other. The trip to the Schynige Platte is characterized by the fantastic views over the Bernese Oberland. The track is so steep that the entire section is fitted with a rack rail. With a view of Lake Thun, the train makes the uphill climb slowly but confidently to the final destination. At an elevation of 1,987 meters, the end of the journey is the Schynige Platte station. Enjoying the lunch and the view. Schynige Platte's botanical garden is famous too. Situated 2,000 meters above sea level, the garden is part of the University of Bern. Here we find over 600 different plants from the Swiss Alps. Interlaken Ost. For years the domain of the brown locomotives of the Bern Luschbog Simplon AG, or BLS for short. Interlaken is also the terminus and starting point for the Bernese Oberland trains, which were still brown and beige at the time. The trip to the Jungfraujoch starts in Interlaken. In Zweiluschinen, the train is divided, with one for Grindelwald and the other for Lauterbrunnen, where a transfer to Kleine Scheidegg is required. Another transfer is necessary in Kleine Scheidegg for the last part of the trip to the Jungfraujoch. Back to the present day with a modern BOB trail, now painted yellow and blue, heading to Zweiluschinen. The first part of the train from Interlaken continues its journey to Lauterbrunnen, whilst the second part of the train heads to Grindelwald. Past the Schynige, heading to Lauterbrunnen. In Lauterbrunnen, travelers for the Jungfraujoch must transfer to a train operated by the Wengen Alpine Railway, or WAB. The track gauge of the two railways differs, hence the need to change trains. The transfer can be postponed to accommodate a visit to the famous Trümmelbergfalls. These waterfalls are part of the Jungfrau region, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The water has carved out narrow passageways in the rocks, creating subterranean waterfalls. Technically, the waterfall comprises 10 smaller waterfalls that send the glacial meltwater from the Eiger, Munch, and Jungfrau crashing down some 140 meters. Lauterbrunnen is also where the Mürren railway gondola departs for the Alp, which is located at 1,487 meters above sea level. In addition to the starting point for spectacular hikes, you can also continue your journey here by rail on board a BLM train. It is a 20-minute ride to Mürren. The BLM is not connected to any other railway. Consequently, maintenance is carried out in a small workshop at the Alp station. At the end of the service, the rolling stock is stored in the Alp and Mürren stations. In the footsteps of James Bond heading for the Schilthorn. This is where the James Bond film On Her Majesty's Secret Service was filmed in 1968-1969. The restaurant on top of Schilthorn, a 2,970-meter-high summit, underwent major renovations for the project and was adapted to the film studio's wishes. After the shoot was completed, the restaurant was opened to the public and kept its cinematic name, Peace Gloria, invented by James Bond author Ian Fleming. The revolving panorama restaurant is a huge draw. The solar-powered restaurant makes a complete rotation in approximately 48 minutes. The Schilthorn has more to offer than just James Bond. The views are incredible, and we immediately recognize the Eiger, Mönch, and Jungfrau. Meanwhile, one of the trains that was split in Schweilerschienen is traveling to the tourist spot of Grindelwald. This is the terminus for both the BOB train from Interlaken Ost and the Wengen Alp Railway train from Kleine, Scheidegg. Grindelwald is situated at the end of the Luchental, wedged between the Eiger, Wetterhorn, Fischelwand, and Fallhorn. Vilst is a small mountaintop north of Grindelwald and can be accessed by gondola from the center of Grindelwald. A famous skiing and hiking area, Vilst is also a great jump-off point for paragliders. Whilst some enjoy lunch or the fabulous view. For the daredevils, there is the Vilst Flyer, which whizzes you down at over 80 kilometers per hour. Vilst is best known for the hike to Lake Bachelt, a classic hike in this area. The banks offer a view of the snow-covered peaks of the Bernese Alps. In Lauterbrunnen, we continue our journey through the Jungfrau Region on board a train operated by the Wengen Alp Railway, WAB, and soon get a look at the famous Staubach-Falls. Going to Wengen by WAB in 1937. Wengen was originally a farming village. Tourism began in the mid-19th century when several hotels were built. Construction of the Wengen Alp Railway between Lauterbrunnen and Grindelwald via Wengen and Kleine Scheidegg in 1893 made it easier for tourists to reach the mountain village. Up until then, the village was accessible only by a steep footpath. The opening of the Cog-wheel railway also ushered in ski tourism. Unlike most railways, the WAB is not an adhesion railway. It is a cog-wheel railway. With an adhesion railway, the friction of the wheels upon the rails is sufficient to propel a train up an incline. If an incline is too steep, a cog system is often used. A cog-wheel meshes into a rail rack mounted in between the rails. It appears that little has changed here over the years. The Kleine Scheidegg is a mountain pass situated 2,061 meters above sea level between the Eiger and the Lauterbrunnen. The pass connects Grindelwald with Lauterbrunnen. Kleine Scheidegg is also the terminus for the trains from Lauterbrunnen and Grindelwald. Grindelwald station is the first and last stop for trains from Interlaken as well as Kleine Scheidegg. The trains from Interlaken end here because the BOB track gauge is not the same as the WAB track gauge. The WAB tracks are more recognizable by the yellow-green color scheme. Traveling from Grindelwald to Kleine Scheidegg, we get a look at the imposing and notorious north face of the Eiger. It was impossible to establish a direct connection from Kleine Scheidegg to Jungfraujoch station. The engineers of the railway, built between 1896 and 1912 to Jungfraujoch station, opted for a completely different system. A different track gauge, a different rack rail system, and a different voltage. Passengers were obliged to change trains, in other words. Located at an elevation of 3,454 meters, Jungfraujoch station is the highest in Europe. In winter, Kleine Scheidegg and the Männlichen have been the center of extensive skiing area around Grindelwald and Wengen in winter. There are several hotels and restaurants in Kleine Scheidegg too. A Jungfraubahn train leaving for Jungfraujoch, a trip that mostly takes place in a tunnel. In the early days, tourists tended to be well-to-do ladies and gentlemen. Nowadays, tourism here is booming and for everyone. Today, traveling to the Jungfraujoch is mainly a question of how do we get these thousands of visitors to the top and back down again on time, day in and day out. The first station is Eiger Gletscher, after which the tunnel starts that goes to the Eiger and the Munch. Next, we arrive at the Eiger Wand station, which is just beyond the north face of the Eiger. Ascending trains often stop here to allow passengers to enjoy the view through the windows carved in the north face. Trains also stop briefly at Eismeer Station, where observation windows offer passengers views of the Grindelwald-Fischen Glacier. Jungfraujoch Station is the underground terminus of the Jungfrau Railway. At an elevation of 2,354 meters, it is the highest station in Europe. Jungfraujoch is the lowest point in the mountain range between the Münch, 4,107 meters, and the Jungfrau, 4,158 meters, as well as the border between the Swiss cantons of Bern and Wallis. Restaurants and shops are built into the mountainside. The glacier has featured a network of corridors since the 1930s. This ice palace is easily accessible and contains many ice sculptures. A lift takes you 117 meters higher to the Sphinx Observatory, which offers a splendid view over the mountaintops and the Aletsch Glacier. In summer, you can enjoy sports such as sledding, skiing, and snowboarding at the Snow Fun Park. The Aletsch Glacier is the largest glacier in the Alps. The ice mass is over 20 kilometers long and consists of more than 25 billion tons of ice. The Aletsch Glacier is on the UNESCO World Heritage List. For many, a visit to the Jungfraujoch is the highlight of their Switzerland trip.